Hey guys, so back again Tuesday morning. Tuesdays are basically my Mondays, especially this time of year with no university classes happening. So the subject for this video is facing your fear, which is something that's been on my mind recently. I've had sorry, big truck. I've had a few reasons for that to be the case. One is naturally, the idea of entering a new lifestyle and in one way or another completely changing my relationship to this business I built. And it's kind of funny timing. Today's September 1st, so in another 17 days will be 6 years since I opened, which is really kind of surprising. It's amazing how time can pass. There's this cumulative effect to it, and that's where all the old people come from, I guess. It's just one day, it's like, wow, it's been 60 years, 70 years. So anyways, back to the subject of facing your fear. This is something we really have to do if we want a stable, somewhat comfortable life with a sense of dignity. And fear is kind of an interesting emotion because a lot of the times we're feeling it when the situation that's causing it, or whatever element it is, it could be something like maybe the fear of a speech tomorrow in front of a bunch of people, or a particular person, or some upcoming decision we have to make, some kind of, I think the common element to it all is there's kind of this aspect of confrontation, where it comes to the time. But a lot of times we will be experiencing fear outside of that period of the confrontation. So that's it's kind of an interesting observation to make, because you can kind of play with it. And then on the other hand, depending on the type of confrontation in question, there is the possibility of getting caught off guard and not knowing how to respond skillfully enough, or at all sometimes. And I think sometimes that's what the real fear is. It's kind of based on how we will respond, and whether that will, kind of almost like, will we win? Will we be the victor? Will we walk away? And it happens a lot in life. I mean, I can remember going back, to earliest memories. There was always that element of like, what should I do? Although I remember when I was younger, I was much more aggressive. And sometimes that still comes out, but I've kind of managed to tone it down a little bit, just because you can really end up paying for your actions in a big way for a long time if you insist on kind of blowing people out of the water, especially here in Japan. But there are instances where, you just got to do what you've got to do. And so for me personally right now, I'm trying to just stay open-minded and stay on an even course and maintain, I guess the best phrase for it is just a sense of dignity, about whatever decision I make. And it can be a subtle difference from arrogance, because some people use arrogance to fuel this kind of fantasy lifestyle where they really think they deserve and they can do these things that are really kind of outside of their means. You can see that in like the Instagram culture. There's so many people just create these fake lives and try to impress people, and that can be really destructive in the end, because you actually end up just kind of wasting a lot of time without any real growth. So I think having a sense of dignity where you're like, where you want to go. It's so humid. Look at my hair, it's crazy wet. You know where you want to go, but you're not a jackass about it. You respect relationships with people. You respect the amount of work it's going to take, and even, I suppose, the element of time it's going to take to get there. Because, even the most successful people on the planet, however you define success, whether it's, starting a company like Google, or inventing the smartphone, or learning 10 languages, the list goes on. Um, Even those people are still just people, you know. They get up in the morning, they're subject to all of the biological, emotional, environmental forces that you and I are. Um, but to a degree, they may have more like financial leeway, so they can delegate a lot of the intricacies of daily life, so they don't have to think about it as much. But the basic capacity they have in their mind is the same as we have in ours, and that can be very helpful to think about. You know, when you consider the only real difference is that they have put in a consistent amount of time and effort toward a specific goal. You know, and so they're further down the road in that regard. And a lot of times also they've had contributing factors where they knew the right people, they may have been born or happened to be living in the right place, spoke the right language, had the right skill set, and all at the right time, right? That's what makes a really big difference. I mean, anybody now could go back to the year 2000 and conceive of the smartphone and start putting it together, and you could probably come up with something, if you had enough capital and talent on your team. So 2020 hindsight, right? So I think fear a lot of times is just that kind of apprehension and uncertainty in regard to not having 2020 foresight. We really want to know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen and how we can generate the perfect response and everything's going to go totally fine and we'll end up with like a few more Instagram followers or whatever. Yeah. I have an Instagram account, but I barely ever check it. Instagram and Twitter for me are kind of just these. I don't know that I've just heard too much about the drama and Izon show in English is like addiction. So Facebook is about as far as I need to go. I think it's bad enough. So, anyways, yeah, I'm going to be facing a lot of fears in the coming weeks and months. I think, as we all are. We have periods in our life where, like, to a greater or lesser degree, there's different fears we're facing. Getting on the plane to come up here to Japan was a big one. That was unreal. I remember we came down to the day, and my flight was leaving fairly early in the morning. Of course, I didn't sleep at all that night, and my brother, bless him, drove me up to the airport, and it was like a very real experience. It's a goodbye to the U.S. In a couple hours, I'm going to be crossing the Pacific on a one-way ticket to start a new life in a new country. And that was a big one. So, in hindsight, though, I think most of us would rather look back on a life where we confronted the right kind of things and handled them in the right kind of way and created kind of lifestyle where we felt like we were contributing and positive and more of a positive force in the lives of others than otherwise. And I think that's a good target to aim for, because not all of us are going to come across the right types of conditions to become the superstars we see on TV, or the massive innovational entrepreneurs we read about. It's not that we couldn't do that, it's just that there's only so much time in life, and so much is dependent on elements and situations that are already in play, unfortunately. But we can tap into some degree of creativity and constructiveness and do something with that to improve our lives, as long as, again, we're willing to face our fear. So there's something it's a book called the Hage Kura. Just popped back into my head here. I was actually thinking about it before I started this video. Hage Kura, I think it is. And it's a book written by a samurai. Yeah, here we go. Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai. It was written by, what's his name? Yamamoto Tsunetomo, which is a rather unusual name, probably pretty old. Um, I haven't touched it in years, but I do remember there was one passage in there where the author was talking about, he was a samurai himself, so they faced really intense situations very, very suddenly, and situations that they had to be prepared for all the time and trained for, and so they were always kind of walking the razor's edge between fear and control. And he said that a lot of people, we spend our lives fearing these kind of events we'd rather avoid. In his life, it was things like sword battle, where in a couple seconds, one person is dead, and hopefully the other person is not dead, and hopefully not injured. And obviously, it's a pretty horrific thing to be part of. But he said, when these things happen, they're usually not as bad as we imagine them to be. And he said that's even the case with dying. It's this massive fear, but it happens, it's over, and that's it. And even if you, regardless of what happens after death, and that applies in smaller ways too. Maybe you have to talk to your boss, you don't really like them, you're kind of afraid of them, they're difficult, unfair, but you have to go talk to them. You go and you talk to them, it's over, that's it. So sometimes that's a good perspective. And also just maintaining your own personal boundaries. Don't let people get too far into your business, too far into your head either. That's a big one. The mental interplay can actually often be a lot worse than the rest of it. So anyways, the air conditioner's finally kicked in, so I'm going to do some morning exercise and then get back to study and schoolwork type stuff. It's the first of the month, so got to prepare a bunch of stuff, go pay my parking, get payment envelopes ready, and so on and so forth. So I hope this video had some kind of value for somebody in some way.